Well, we're going to have a great big Trump rally tonight in Las Vegas. It may not look like it. It's not like a typical stadium or arena where you have people in the back, but there are going to be a lot of people in front of President Trump. We're expecting that in a little over an hour. Newsmax is there. We'll cover the whole thing. You know, you can learn more in an hour and a half watching a Trump rally than you can in a year of watching the fake news. Who's that fellow? Looks like he's just testing the mic. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. And in the meantime, did you hear about the Menendez boys? I'm sorry. This is a total travesty. These guys potentially, most likely, will be let out of jail because a woke prosecutor said they may have had reason to kill their parents. You know about this, right? 1989, these two spoiled brat rich kids killed their parents with shotguns. All right. You know, I wasn't there. I didn't grow up with these kids. I've watched a few documentaries. I've kept an eye on it over the years, and I have common sense. And these were two adult men who killed their parents, and the whole idea that they had been sexually abused and all that stuff, you heard that, right? That's the latest thing, and a lot of people have signed on board, and it's a whole new woke era. I'm not buying it. These guys got sentenced for first-degree capital murder, killing their parents in the den as they watch TV in that Beverly Hills mansion. That's certainly an aerial view. Straight down on the, yeah, it was a very, very, you know who used to live in that house, by the way? Prince. Before the Menendez people lived there, the Prince actually lived there. Right now, the Menendez boys are in prison, and I believe that's where they belong. But guess what? They got hot on Netflix. And Kim Kardashian got involved. I like Kim, but sometimes she's a bit misguided. And possibly because, I don't know, they're handsome. Is that part of it, right? They get a break when other people don't. I don't like it. They killed their parents, and they were adults. But listen to the, this is the woke prosecutor. He's very, very soft on crime. His name is George Gascon. And the rationale to let these guys out is, in my view, preposterous.
I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. Under the law, since they were under 26 years of age at the time that these crimes occurred, they would be eligible for parole immediately.
Eligible for parole immediately. These two psycho killers. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What do they say? Because they were under the age of 26. Look at them. That's a couple of months after the murder. They're grown men in the eyes of the law. This new under 26 thing is ludicrous. The lawyer did one thing that was probably pretty smart. She got him out of those suits and into sweaters, right, to make them look like fourth graders. Anyway, it's really bizarre. I remember when this happened, no doubt about their guilt, and they're getting out because a woke prosecutor says less than 26, they're not fully responsible. This nonsense about an unprovable story. Oh, well, this is America. For the time being. All right, what's next? Yeah, the valor is MIA. A lot of things going on. We've almost lost track of Tim Walz, right? He is running for vice president of the United States. That's a pretty big deal. And is he going to get away with this? Stolen valor? He stole it. Everybody knows it. He wasn't in war. And he's getting away with it. Everywhere he goes on this show, that show. It doesn't even come up anymore. But this is textbook stolen valor.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Well, we know now that he did not go to war. In fact, it looks like he pulled strings to not go to Iraq when his unit needed him. Seems to me that that's very disrespectful to the people who served in uniform and maybe did not get to go to Iraq. You know, not everybody in military actually gets to go to the war. So his service was fine. Why is he bragging? Why is he undermining his own service? It's very strange. It's also strange that this man is running for vice president. Actually, they vetted him and they still chose him after Minneapolis burned down. Minneapolis burned down, and he allowed it. He allowed it to burn down. He absolutely allowed it to burn down. He wanted to give everybody some space, you know, blow off some steam, the George Floyd thing. Everybody's got a right to break things and hurt people. I don't think so. When they evacuated the 6th precinct, I think it was, or was it the 3rd precinct? The 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis Police Department. It was overrun by Black Lives Matter, Antifa lunatics, and the cops had to evacuate. And they torched the precinct. They torched it. It was totally destroyed. This is one of the many reasons why Tim Walz shouldn't have been reelected, should not be the vice presidential nominee. He is a walking disaster. But in this crazy moment, this crazy woke world, you can actually be proud of that horrendous failure.
Earlier this morning, when this mission was carried out under my direction to resecure the 3rd precinct, to do so in a manner which I am proud of how it was executed by this team, no injuries and no loss of life.
You're proud that the precinct was burned to the ground. You're proud of that. You're proud of that. You can't be proud of that. At least you can't be proud of that and be the vice presidential nominee for a major party. This guy conceivably could be president of the United States relatively soon. It is looking less and less and less likely. It's looking very good for President Trump, but he's come far too close. How about this? Some guy from CNN gets arrested because he won't leave the street. You know, during a riot, the police are trying to maintain order. They say nobody can be in the streets. This reporter with this cameraman, they think they're important. They think they're special. They don't leave the street, so they get arrested. So he's proud of the precinct burning down to the ground. He owes the people an apology, doesn't he? Who gets an apology? The guy who runs CNN. It was a CNN reporter.
A CNN reporter a crew was arrested by the State Patrol. A few minutes after hearing that, I was on a call with CNN President Jeff Zucker, who demanded to know what happened. I take full responsibility. There is absolutely no reason something like this should happen. Calls were made immediately. This is a very public apology to that team. It should not happen.
Well, just groveling for the fake news, really. So this is what the state legislature determined in a special report about the riots. Governor Walz allowed rioting on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. He allowed it. Governor Walz finally interceded. When he finally interceded, the chaos became worse. Let's see here. Governor Walz did not lead, thereby failing the cities, the state, and the citizens when they needed him most. Governor Walz was paralyzed by philosophical debate during the riots. Now, this isn't some New York Post expo written after he got the nomination. This is a state report that came out years ago. This is the kind of thing that a normal person would read if they're running for president and say, okay, next. He doesn't get to be my running mate, but wild, huh? Oh, and don't forget the China stuff.
Now, I happen to be and understand a little about China and lived in China and speak Chinese. I'm pretty friendly with China.
Fostering cooperation amongst people in China and the United States on their own, understanding that these are the things that tie us together.
So I don't fall into the category that China necessarily needs to be an adversarial relationship. Please remember to practice social distancing and wear a mask as you celebrate. Gong hei fa zoi.
It's a little bit too much enthusiasm for our enemy. We love the Chinese people, but the Chinese Communist Party, how many times did he go over there? Going all the way back to the 1980s, 30 times, starting when he was 20-something years old as a social studies teacher. That's weird, very weird. But here's might be the reason why he was so fond and is so fond of China. All the way back in the past year that Tim Walz spent teaching school in China was a very rewarding one, he says to the local newspaper. Okay, no matter how long I live, I'll never be treated that well again. They gave me more gifts than I could bring home. It was an excellent experience. Now, why did they give you all that stuff? Why? Was there a motive? Could they possibly have a motive in winning you over, in wooing you, in turning you into some sort of Manchurian candidate? They just gave and gave and gave to me. Going there was one of the best things I've ever done. And he kept going back and back and back. So it's kind of funny that they say, Trump is the one who's enthralled with dictatorships, right? You see that fake news line. They love it.
He admires dictators, sending love letters back and forth with Kim Jong-un.
Trump has no interest in democracy. He imitates and praises dictators only.
It's extraordinary to hear Trump continue to praise these dictators.
Fascinating thing is the swamp, Democrats, Republicans even, yeah, some. The Uniparty, let's call it the Uniparty. They actually love dictators. They love any customer. They love anybody who's going to, George W. Bush, Kenny Bunkport, that great big mansion he had on the ocean, very rich family. Here they are wooing Vladimir Putin, and Putin seems to be manipulating the Bushes. Take a look.
President Bush took his Russian guest on a morning fishing trip where Putin was the only one to catch a fish. But the Russian president called it a team effort. Back on land with Mr. Bush's mother, father, and wife watching from a distance, the two presidents discussed their talks and answered questions. President Bush said one problem he has with some world leaders is knowing if they are telling the truth.
I've never had to worry about that with Vladimir Putin.
Вот с Владимиром Путиным у меня этого вопроса никогда не возникало.
Sometimes he says things I don't want to hear.
Иногда он говорит те вещи, которые я не хочу слышать.
But I know he's always telling me the truth.
What? And they give Donald Trump a hard time for saying Putin's a smart guy. You gotta understand that. He trusts him. He loves him. He looks into his soul. And how many fish did they catch? This guy's a ruthless dictator. Has been for a very long time. Oh, that's nice. You caught a fish with the Bushes. What is it with Republicans and Democrats who love dictators?
China is going to eat our lunch. Come on, man. They're not bad folks. But guess what? They're not they're competition for us. China's not our problem. We can help them with some of their problems. China's not a problem.
You think in retrospect that you were naive about China?
No.
No. All that money we got, it had nothing to do with my decision to allow that balloon to fly over the country. No. You want unambiguous leadership that is, I don't know, appropriately aggressive and strong against a dictatorship like China? It sounds something like this.
It was China's fault, and China's going to pay a big price, what they've done to this country. China's going to pay a big price, what they've done to the world. This was China's fault, and just remember that.
Sounds like a man who wasn't wasting time in his 20s going over there and getting free gifts like Tim Walz, right? Sounds like a man who has not received money from China in weird ways, who managed to get that money to his daughter-in-law, whatever. Haley Biden got money. Sounds like a guy with a clean conscience, actually, and cares most about the country, not about whatever entanglements he has. All right, back to Walz. You compare this guy. Remember, this guy got a honeymoon. He's still having a honeymoon with the press. Remember what they said about Vance, right? Vance, he was the weird one. J.D. Vance. The guy is a prince. Watch.
Honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens.
All right, it's one thing to lose a debate. It's one thing to get beaten in a debate. But you can't telegraph to the world that you're losing and that you're scared. And that's what Tim Walz did. Remember? He was First of all, the way he's looking at him right there, he took a big gulp. Oh my God, this guy is good. This guy is smart, and I should not be here. No, you shouldn't, Tim. Sorry.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.